They've got FBI that serves as an overarching arm, particularly over the uniform structure of policing, which assists men and women in the front line of fighting a crime. Because you can't fight a crime when you have got your own colleague conspiring against you, working with the criminal gangs. I'll make a typical case example. The gang violence happening in Umlazi, in KZN, Cleveland's hostel, where one person killing a number of people. Information at my disposal, that person highly connected to top-ranking officers, police officers. This person hijacking drugs, sharing the profits of money with police officers, and can never be arrested, even right now. And that's why then I still communicate with the chairperson of this structure at a parliamentary level, because it shocks me. Come a good police officer, go and plan to go and execute a mission. Tomorrow that officer is found killed in cold blood. Can one say that that was just an incident, a God's calling, or a planned mission from inside police structures because you don't have sufficient overarching structure that can actually clear the landmines within your own body structure of police? Do we have this particular thing? If not, I am raising this because as members of parliament, it is our duty to ensure that the government and the responsible ministers are able to put these structures in place in order to ensure that we get rid of this thing, rather than mourning and mourning and mourning all the time. Secondly, when it comes to deployment of security forces on the field, here is a call coming, and a police officer is maybe... Is it made a standard rule that no police officer can go alone? Because most of these guys are very young people. Very young people, and some of them, I've seen them on the field, very much inexperienced. I think the statistics of yours also say this thing here. Very young constables who still lack a lot of even combat experience, if I may put it, in a much more militaristic way. Do we ensure that there is a sufficient backup, for example, 2 or 3 or 4 members, so that we can't see what we saw on television in Gauteng when that police officer from Gauteng, Johannesburg Metro or whatever, Ekurhuleni, had to be gunned repeatedly by just a lousy criminal without a kind of any immediate reaction by other colleagues. Though it was a metro, but even to uniform police, I believe it does happen. So what measures do we put in place in order to ensure that there is sufficient immediate reaction rather than waiting for a long responsive action? Then there is this question of off-duty execution of members. Have you analyzed maybe the types of communities within which these areas our police officers have been executed? I'm just making a typical example. Maybe it was around the Shibin area, maybe around the squatter camp area, maybe around the township area, or maybe the so-called well-established, what you can call formal suburb areas, so that maybe we can have just a clearer picture. What is it? And even an advice at your level of command and control for members not to make themselves so much prone, because it's all bad. These guys, most of them, to me, they are breadwinners and all that. The way they are killed, it leaves much more to be desired. Then lastly...
Sorry, Honourable, you've got your 3. That's your quota.
Oh, okay, sure, no, thanks.
That's your quota.
Thanks.
Next
I think I'm done. Thanks very much.
Honourable Mabele. Thank you, Chairperson. I mean, it's quite clear that there are two main aspects to this issue: the on-duty killings or attacks, and then the off-duty ones. In terms of the on-duty aspects, I must say the picture in theory that we have in terms of the police safety plan does look quite good and fairly comprehensive. But as the chairperson hinted in his question, there's still a very big question around whether the implementation is optimal, in particular on a systemic level, because it's when these kind of measures that are often interlinked and support each other or mutually supporting, they have to be done at a critical mass in order to have effects. It's no good having a sort of spotted performance in that regard. So I do have a question as to whether the implementation is optimal on a systemic level, so that when an officer who is in a dangerous situation needs to call for backup or call for assistance, you don't have a failure of the hotline or of radio equipment. But because the numbers, the greater numbers are in the off-duty aspects, I'd like to direct my questions on that side. The first question is in relation to the finding from the analysis of incidents, which found that most members who are killed off-duty are victims of crime. And General Pina mentioned that this category of police attacks and killings have a higher firearm-related incidence rate, if I heard correctly. So the factor of firearms in those attacks and killings is higher than in the general crime profile. I'd like to ask why that is the case. So has the analysis found the causal reasons behind that being the case? My second question relates to the vehicle incidents subcategory within the off-duty aspects, because those figures also were quite high. And I wanted to ask if that analysis had compared those vehicle accident rates to general national statistics and trends, because I just want to check if it's if it's a microcosm of a general picture, or is there a particular issue around police service members who are involved in vehicle accidents when they're off duty. I know some years back there were problems around police officers, some police officers either having expired or not actually having driver's licenses when operating vehicles. So just that comparison as to whether there is an issue there. SABC members in those accidents as opposed to the general accident rates as a proportion of the population. And then my third question, in terms of, there's also a finding about the profile of the members who are killed. This bullet point doesn't specify if this is a combination of on-duty and off-duty, but in any event, given the higher numbers of off-duty, that'll be the greatest weighting. We have the age profile and we have a profile in terms of work experience. But I would like to know if there's any, I'd like to ask about the gender dimension of this profile. Do we know if we're talking, if most of the off-duty are victims of crime? Do we know what the gender dimension is of that, especially as compared to the general crime stats? So are service members who are male or female more vulnerable as victims of crime compared to the general population? Because that will also be useful information to have in terms of targeted interventions and prevention measures. I'm going to stop there for now, Chair.
Thank you, members. Over to General Sitole and his team. Thank you.
Yeah, Chairperson, thank you very much. And we also want to thank the honorable members equally for the questions. I think, Chairperson, we will answer all the questions for which we've got the answers on the spot, and those that require additional information, then we will provide reports. And I'm going to take some of the questions, and then the colleagues will also be taking others and adding. The first question I wanted to start with is the one that is raised by the chairperson on the technology side. We have already engaged a number of technological that is entrepreneurs, and that includes the body cameras. And we also have a structured intervention between ourselves and our technology that is a division in the SABC. And they are currently working on technological improvements that relate to policing, including this particular aspect. And then the Deputy Minister has also brought in a new approach in terms of communication for us to consider, and we've been sitting with some of the companies that demonstrated the use of satellites, especially in the areas where we do not have effective communication, the rural spread areas, and that has been an input, and currently that is also referred to our technology. They are dealing with it. So we are looking at maybe escalating that to a level where it should help us to beef up even the capacity of 10,111, so that we are able to reach out to all areas in the country. Then the other question which relates to the monitoring with regard to the bulletproof vests. In terms of our current instructions, one, the provincial commissioners have got an obligation to enforce this and also to monitor it at each and every province. But this is an equal task of all commanders within the command and control environment. This instruction extends to all parades. Before members are deployed, they are inspected whether they have the bulletproof vests. But again, when they are on duty, in progress with their tour of duty, then the commanders, they are also equally responsible to inspect the members on duty. But it's also a duty of each and every officer in the organization. If I meet a police van and members are on patrol, they are not on bulletproofs, and then I stop the van and I confront them. And the same applies if you find them deployed anywhere. So that monitoring is across, that is the board. The debriefing question, I think it will be best responded to by EHW. They will give quite an extensive, including the data related to which General Bernard will add, and as well as the risk manager and the duties. There was a question by the honorable member which relates to why more police are killed, yet we have the plan. I think what we have advanced here is modus operandi. And I also want to put it to the portfolio committee that there's other areas that we're dealing with, which are actually part and parcel of the root cause factors why some of the police are getting killed. And one of those is corruption. which we are dealing with very aggressively together with between the investigations and DPCI as well as CI. I think to a certain extent, in certain areas, we find that we are infiltrated, and some of our members are infiltrated. That is why we do arrest them. And I've mentioned the recent case where members has been sentenced together with a criminal. Those particular members were actually completely infiltrated. And during the time we're investigating that case, I think those members' life was always at stake. We ended up being forced to deploy a specific TRT contingency to protect the investigators against it. That is why we ended up having arrested them. So if we're also face to face with that particular challenge, then you have the police who are very dedicated and who will always do their work according to how the law prescribes. And those who are already infiltrated that works with criminals, then they sell them to the criminals. And then they will start saying, in actual fact, there's no problem. The problem is that policeman. They would even go to an extent of giving the addresses of those policemen, their children and everything, where they go and all that. And criminals get that information and they use it against them. But we are going for them and we do arrest them. And yesterday alone, I think we took two, a former colonel and a captain for 25 years, and as well as 22 years. And they were working in organized crime. So we are acting against them, but I wanted just the portfolio committee to understand that if we have a challenge like this, police killings are likely to continue as long as we haven't got into them. That's why we're also extending now our profiling to all the ex-employees, especially those who left the service because of criminal activities. So, but the plan is coming closer to ending this. And I want to bring this also to the question and input that was raised by Honorable Ramatlakane to say, for us to reach the final end or stop to this is when we are working together with our communities. And it is when all the disciplines, all the stakeholders are working together with us. And I want to touch, like for instance, the question of the environmental design that he raised. I think definitely there's several environmental design factors which are a contributory factor to this. And one of them that I can put forth, and we confronted SABC because we've got a partnership with SABC. They will put an ATM in a very risky area, and that area would be in an area that is a little bit more informal than formal. They'll just put it in a garage. And for the police to get to that particular place, they will have to pass areas that are not conducive in terms of environmental design. And that's where the criminals put the ambush. And let me also give you another example. There's various unused buildings in the country. And those unused buildings, some of them, you have to pass them before you get to a place where there's a crime scene. And that building is under nobody's control. The criminals just get into that particular building and they wait. The police van is going to pass 10 meters away from that particular area. And I'm sure we might have seen in one of the incidents, police were shot from the top by the criminals. They were just waiting there. Now, part and parcel of the environmental design factors, we are also saying let's work together with municipalities, all other government departments. Those buildings that are no longer utilized, is either we dispose of them in one way or the other. And us as the police, we cannot necessarily deal with such aspects. So that is why at the present moment we're bringing in communities, we're engaging with municipalities, but where we also want support in terms of this, we are implementing and operationalizing the National Crime Prevention Strategy. and we're talking to all provincial governments, and then we're taking it down to municipalities. And once we can win that particular battle, we will be able to defer the root causes to where they belong, so that we're able to clear or clean up the slate. Then, Chairperson, there was also mention of legislation. We have tasked our legal services. They are helping us with the analysis of legislations. I think, yes, here in this particular area, though it's an area that we touching it here also very carefully. But one of the examples is Section 49. The previous section is completely different from this one. But what we are looking at is, it's some of the legislations we need to build strategies around them and say, but how do we make sure that we're able to respond correctly in terms of this legislation? Because what the criminals are doing now in terms of modus operandi, they study the legislation. And one of the things they say now is that we know the police will never shoot you first. You can come as close as you like. And then, and if the criminal is facing that side and you come close to them, they can't be ready and they just turn and shoot. So we are also workshopping our members on them, but then we're also looking at such areas. But there are several areas where we're looking at legislations, including even the legislations that governs the appeals. Then the plight of the children of SABC members. For each and every case EHW comes in, we have this SABC Education Trust Fund, which has been introduced by the National Commissioner. And then those particular children are immediately taken care of. But we also have the other provisions like the debt grant, which is also immediately that is payable. The families of those members, they remain part and parcel of the SABC family. And then there's also aftercare, which I think EHW will be adding to that. Then there was also a mention in a question that talks to zooming into Gauteng. I think earlier on, Chairperson, I've indicated that we're also following hotspot policing. We are identifying all the hotspot areas and then where our police members are killed. And Gauteng is a hotspot province because they've got more hotspot areas within it. Then from the side of national and from the National Crime Combating Forum, we have hotspot interventions, and we've already started hotspot interventions in Gauteng. But the same applies. We're not only zooming into a province, but we're zooming into a hotspot. Like the number one hotspot in the country in terms of our hotspot analysis is honeydew, but we also have poison also in Gauteng. Then we zoom into those particular hotspots, then we bring in intervention, then we stabilize them. But our intention here is to stabilize Gauteng first. Then we deal with all the other provinces. Then there was a comparison to say the bullet. We say most of the causal factors they rest on the bulletproofs, yet members are shot on the head and neck. I think there's several areas that we're looking at that could maybe make our members vulnerable and giving the opportunities giving the criminals the opportunities maybe to shoot at them. One of them where we're putting in measures is our members using cell phones when the van is in motion, or sometimes when they are parked somewhere. Because one of the instructions that we're getting out to them now is to say, if the crew is on a cell phone, no one is on the alert for any criminal attack. And then the criminals have got an opportunity to shoot at any sport which they want to choose, and then that is for our members. I also indicated we are also addressing areas like corruption, but then we are also intensifying the inspections, because that's what is important for us, how the members are doing the work. And if they stop somewhere, why are they stopping there? How is the area where they are stopping? And obviously no one should fall asleep, because the criminal will be very happy. So these are some of the areas that we are also just trying to intensify. When I spoke about the compliance board is looking at the consequential management side. And we are not only looking at the members who are not complying with the safety measures. We are also looking at the role of the commander. Because after confronting a member, if we find a member who doesn't comply with the safety measures, then at the compliance board level, we summon the commander. And we want to know exactly why is this not enforced. Then the question that talks to community involvement, I think that's actually one of the reasons why we called all the boards, the provincial board chairpersons. We wanted the community to come in and start working with us. And one of the example, we had an awareness campaign in Witbank yesterday. They were there, the communities, all the local chairpersons, and we also flagged on the police killings, and we had a very positive response of the communities because they all condemned the police killings. We're also trying to explain the implications, because if the police ratio is 1:2,000 and that police member is killed, then we've got 1,000 communities without policing, and these implications they understand. But what we appreciate, Chairperson, is the positive response that we are getting from the community, because like Gauteng has already started with a number of interventions, and appreciating it more is that the Premier and the MSC are also very much involved. Then regarding the health and fitness, the special training programs which has been presented or reflected in the presentation, they are...
Sorry, General.
Yes.
Maybe just visitors are always welcome, but bilaterals preferably outside. Thank you. You can go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. These trainings we have now we have now ordered HRD to train our members in progress. And we are also doing operational readiness assessment of the members who are deployed, so that we take members from deployment to training, and to have also a very sustainable, that is a refresher training. Then there's a question that talks to confidentiality training. Yes, we train them, but we vet them. I think we take them through the intelligence, scrutiny, and everything. What is more important for us is vetting, and that we do. We also do, that is the gag analysis. We take them through that. But as I've also indicated, when they get infiltrated, that's where the problem comes. And we are also putting those particular measures together. The question of the workshops, Chairperson, we've got workshops, we've got lectures, then we've got parades. The parades, we speak to them and brief them about how they should go in, how they should conduct themselves in those operations where they are getting deployed. In the lectures, we lecture them, we educate them about safety measures and how they should also conduct themselves. But when we escalate it to workshops, that's when we take them to training interventions and then higher levels than those. Whether they are working, I would say yes, they are working, But then as we do them, the criminals are also doing their own research. And they are also trying to intensify their own infiltration and other issues. But we are also always becoming equal to the task because we elevate them to the next level. Our HRD is also continuously conducting research on training. And from policing side, as we come across new modus operandi, we communicate that to HRD and say, can we escalate training to the next level so that we can overcome this? Whether we have got sufficient squadrons, I would say at the present moment, yes, but there's room for improvement. Let me start with the TRT contingency. I think it's spread all over the country, in all 9 provinces. We've got TRT. And they are highly competent in terms of their training, and especially when they are deployed. But then we also have the NIU. And the NIU's level of training is higher than TRT. And when we deploy TRT and it doesn't work, we bring in that is the NIU. And in terms of the activation plan, they can be dispatched to the furthest area within 30 minutes because it's either we take them through helicopters, and if we realize it's too quick, we could even ask the National Commissioner to support. When they were deployed in Lesotho, they stood against the Lesotho defense when they wanted to attack the Prime Minister. That's how competent they are. So they are there, but because we've got 9 provinces, what we are taking from the honorable members' questions and concerns is the fact that maybe we need to intensify it more so that then we have it available.
Sorry, General Sitole, we're going to pause here for 10 minutes.
Yes.
Tea break, members, 10 minutes, and then we come back for further responses. Thank you. Just
Thank you, Chair.
members, just to indicate we've got still 3 other items, so yeah, thanks.